Hey, you guys. Spirit is guiding me to record for you a quick version of my story. Don't know exactly why, but I think the reasons are primarily one, for some, to be like a comparison point for you to understand what you've experienced by having someone to compare it to. And I think for others to just give you like a greater understanding of me and, you know, how I channel, how I got here, things like that, since, there's new people here and I don't remember the last time I talked about it. So I'm trying to be quick because I know it can be wordy and long, and I'm trying to focus on the points that Spirit wants me to focus on. So I am in the earlier waves of twin flames. I did not know the term twin flames when I met my twin. We met in 2013, and that's when our journey was activated. That's when we first spoke. Actually, one of the hallmarks for me and him, which, there are some people who believe or who state that it's like, immediately when you meet your twin. Well, that's not the case for every single person. But something that does stand out for me and my twin, we worked in the same building, and I knew of him for 2 years before we ever met. So I actually were in each other's circles from 2011, but we didn't speak until 2013. And I will say that for us, one of the things that stands out to me is that as that twin flame connection and pull, is that I have memories of him, very specific, detailed memories of him during that 2 year period before we ever spoke. And it stands out to me because I didn't have a crush on him. Like, as far as I was aware, he was married and he wasn't my type either. So I was drawn to him, but I wasn't drawn to him romantically. And so it was a little bit perplexing to me why, now I realize it was my higher self. I didn't at the time, but why it was drawing me to him and why I was like taking note of him all these different times. Like I said, the memories are very, very clear in my head, detailed, like things that my boss said about him. I remember my higher self telling me one time when I stepped into a crowded elevator and I happened to stand next to him. I remember my higher self in my head saying, "Say hello." But I didn't listen to it at the time. But eventually he talked to me and everything went from there. And we did click quickly. I didn't have that knowing. I didn't even know what twin flames were. All I knew of was soulmates at that point in time. So I didn't have that knowing, but we did instantly connect. And the first night that we ever kissed, we kissed one time with our eyes open. Like, I can't do that with anybody else. And like literally, I think that we stared into each other's souls while we were kissing that time, which I think that's when everything was activated. But anyway, so met in 2013. I didn't know what twin flames were until 2017. And between 2013 and 2017, we had lots of ups and downs because it was normal. It's normal twin flame journey stuff. He had a karmic partner. He went back and forth between me and her during that time. He, had a lot. We both had a lot to go through. And of course, now in hindsight, I understand all of that. In hindsight, I understand that every single thing that happened in our journey, both from the 3D perspective and from the spiritual perspective, every single thing that happened was supposed to, and it served a purpose. There were things that happened that I asked Spirit, like, why did it have to happen that way? And Spirit's exact words to me were, it had to happen that way so that everything would work out in this lifetime the way that it needed to. This is one of the things that I've come to understand based on my experience and watching clients, that everything is planned out by our higher selves and our spirit team and is happening for a reason and a purpose, even when it's something difficult. So between 2013 and 2017, like I said, lots of ups and downs. But our last separation was 2016. And between 2016 and the end of 2017, I really, really struggled. I really did try to let go at that time. I shouldn't say let go because that's a confusing phrase. I really tried to move on during that time because I really thought that was it. although we were still in communication, but I thought that was it. I thought he had made his choice. And the more that I tried to move on, the more pain I was in. And the second that I told myself, you don't need to move on, or you don't need to cut him out of your life or whatever, I would be instantly okay. It was literally like flicking a switch. And could literally go from like depressed to completely fine. And so that was how I came to realize that my soul was telling me, you are not moving on. Stop trying. You're not moving on. This is not the end. And I also realized that it wasn't the end for him either. Like, I came to a point of understanding him and his behavior that I knew that he, was, I don't know how to say it, because, it's like expressing what's unspoken. But I could tell that he was trying to find his way back to me also. But there was lots of difficulties, lots of things that would come up, lots of obstacles that came in the way. And it was just not an easy process. And by the end of 2017, I was getting so in despair and desperate about it, and not understanding why. I could even see him trying to come back to me too, but there's always something that would come up or something that would happen. And I didn't understand what was going on. And I did reach a point, and I hesitate to share this, but I'm sharing it to help those who feel this way too. I got to a point of being suicidal. And I know that there's definitely going to be people out there who say, like, how can you even say that? That's really dark. Sorry, I got stuck in word search. I deleted a part. Okay. There's a lot of people who would say, that's really dark. What about your kids? All those types of things. Look, this was the thought processes going through my head. I was in so much pain from the twin flame separation, which I know you guys know what that feels like. And I was just in such a bad place emotionally and depressed that I felt like I couldn't go on going through the motions of living and pretending like I was happy for the people around me when I wasn't. And look, my daughter was not enough. My older daughter was, not at home, but the truth is that my daughter was not enough to alleviate that. So, yeah, that's what I can tell you. Like I said, I know that there are some people who feel like suicide is a cop-out, but that was my state of mind. Like, I cannot go through the motions indefinitely. And it felt indefinite at that point after 2 years. Like, I couldn't understand why I couldn't move on, or why we couldn't come back together. It felt like I was stuck in an airplane that was in a holding pattern circling an airport, and it wasn't landing. And, like, imagine being stuck in an airplane like that. Like, at some point you might go crazy if you can't get off the plane. And that's what I felt like. Okay, but I came to understand that it was necessary for me to feel like that, to get to the root of the problem of what was going on. And the problem of what was going on was significant spiritual warfare that was battling against us to keep us from coming together. It was the karmic doing immense amounts of black magic to the point of trying to cast a demon on him to give her complete control over him. And there was also demonic attacks as well that she didn't even know about, like completely separate demonic attacks. So it was necessary for me to reach that point of soul level desperation to even seek out the information to discover the spiritual warfare and get to work at defeating it. And I chose to do that because I had reached the point where I knew that I was thinking about how I was going to kill myself, and I could not and would not allow her to take ownership of his soul. So I made the choice to do whatever was necessary to save both of us from the spiritual warfare. And I have absolutely zero regrets about it. And I would do everything the same all over again, no matter what. But understand that spiritual warfare affects 50% of twin flames, and it's a big deal. It must be dealt with. Okay, hold on. I unintentionally ran that last video up to the very last second. So, as I was saying, one of the things that I learned is that spiritual warfare is significant. It affects 50% of twin flames. It changes your divine masculine's behavior, and it affects the situation in ways that you probably can't even imagine because so many people don't even believe in it, let alone understand how it works. Like now I can frequently point it out because now that I'm more knowledgeable about it, I can recognize it. But yeah, it's significant, and it is the one and only thing that can indefinitely delay union until it's all completely fixed and handled. So I realized that it was necessary for my journey, for me to feel that way and to get suicidal, so that I would be desperate enough to speak to psychics and spiritual advisors and discover the spiritual warfare and then get to work at defeating it. Because I grew up religious and needing evidence and things like that, science, blah, blah, blah. So that's part of the reason why I had never heard of twin flames until 2017, because I hadn't learned anything from the spiritual community yet, because I had resistance because of my religious background. So it took me reaching that point to even seek out the information. And I understand that now. And, I feel bad that back at that point in time, I sent my twin a long email telling him how I felt and that I wanted to kill myself. And I feel bad for the pain and the guilt that I know it has given him. Oh my gosh, it's like making me teary right now. I feel guilty for the pain and the guilt that I know that I've caused to him for saying that stuff to him. But that's just, I can't go back. Like, there are things I understand now that I didn't understand then. Now I understand that every single thing happened for a reason and how it was supposed to, and I get it. I wouldn't change anything because I know it was necessary. That being said, I'm trying to give you a quick summary here. So that was the first stage, I guess you can say, of our journey. Once I discovered the spiritual warfare, like I said, I was not willing to allow her to take ownership of his soul and his life. And I wasn't willing to give up on my life now that I knew what the problem was. And let me just say real quick, I also found out that there was a direct correlation of that with a past life of ours in which the same thing happened. So when my high priestess explained that to me, and that in that lifetime, the same thing had played out and both of us did commit suicide, I knew that it was all true because I already felt that way. So that was crazy. But of course, now I understand that so much of what we experience is a repeating cycle from a past life that we are meant to heal now in this life. So fine. But anyway, so from December 2017 until April 2021, I dealt with our spiritual warfare. And it was definitely far more than what I could have imagined at the beginning, but I don't have any regrets. I would do it all the same because it was necessary. There are things that happened. I'm not going to get into the whole stories now because it actually legit takes me 5 hours to tell the whole story. So can't get into that now. But there are specific things that happened that uncovered stuff from our past lives that had been intentionally hidden by dark beings, that was necessary to be uncovered and healed and fixed, or our union would have been permanently blocked. And we probably would all meet. When I say we all, I mean me, him, and his daughter would have all ended up dead at some point in time. So I know that it had to happen that way. And it was all for the greater plan for our lives in this lifetime. Now, I can't really go into that more because I just don't have enough time. But that being said, from the end of 2017 to April 2021, that's what I was dealing with. Stopping the karmic from all of the black magic and attempts that she was doing, which at one point was nonstop, but eventually we got that under control because we took away her ability to do anything. And then we had constant demonic attacks for a while until I uncovered, this was the main thing that I was talking about there, I uncovered a hex that had been put on us from something that we did in the lifetime that was causing the constant demonic attacks. I started off, the very first demon had been attached to him for 10 lifetimes from the first time the karmic started attacking us in 10 lifetimes ago. And it had been attached to him all along. And it actually, when it was stated to me about it, it was, my high priestess said, does he have really bad luck? Like nothing will ever go his way, and health problems that sometimes the doctors can't even explain. And there were some other things that she said. She actually even identified some of the health problems. And he had literally said almost the exact same words to me a previous time. And he had also once said to me, I have one hell of a demon inside of me. And he didn't even realize that he really did. So that was the first one that I dealt with. And after that, they just kept coming one after another for 3 years. So I got my experience in dealing with demons, and I can say that I always win. And I do have confidence in that, because now it just got to a point where the more we were attacked, the angrier I would get. And I was like, now if I'm attacked, I'm like, let's go. Let's fucking do this. Like, come on. Because I don't play around. And when I take care of a demon, I take care of a demon for good. But anyway, I could go down some tangents on that. That's not the purpose of this. So I dealt with all of that. But this is leading me to one of the main things that Spirit did want me to talk about, which was the direct answered prayer that I received. So that's what I dealt with spiritual warfare for those 3 years or whatever it was. At the beginning of 2018, which obviously the beginning of the spiritual warfare journey, at that point, my first year, like 100%, God carried me through that first year, because it was all new to me, and I was thrown into the deep end. And plus I was suicidal when it all started in the first place. So, and I found out at the beginning of that year that the karmic had made sure that she got pregnant, of course, which she used black magic to do as well, altering the souls' lives of me, my twin, and his daughter. But that's another story for another day. Point being that it was unnatural, and she didn't even have a clue of the ramifications of everything that she was going to do. But that is also what Spirit told me. It had to be that way for everything to work out in this lifetime how it needed to. So fine. In any case, I was in a difficult and dark place at the beginning of 2018 because of all of that stuff that was going on, between finding out she had done 30 spells to him in 2 years. That was the time before I found out. Finding out about her making sure she got pregnant. Finding out about the demonic attacks. So I was in a difficult place. And Spirit gave me some very loud neon signs to not just reassure me that everything was going to be okay, but also to point me in the direction of my soul path of becoming a twin flame advisor and healer and helping other people with warfare and everything else as well. One of the first things was that I was driving home, and this was actually a few days before I found out about the pregnancy. And I'm looking, like the sun was already below the horizon, and I'm looking in the sky, and there is this light that I'm like, what the heck is that? Like, I don't understand what that is. And I took several pictures of it. Let me show you. Here's that picture, which it's a little bit brighter because I'm recording. This is that light that I saw while I was driving. You can see how this is not circular like a sun. This is more like a body shape, and with a bigger chest in the center. And in the video, that doesn't look the same in person, but in the video you have that white bright light in the center too. So my high priest and high priestess said that was one of the most clear angel signs they have ever seen. And I know that was either Jesus or my angels telling me, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. So that was one of the most significant signs I got. And I'll have to come back in part 3 to wrap up and tell you the other direct answered prayer I got. Okay, so the end of that last video, I showed you the picture of the angel or Jesus in the sky or whatever it was. Like I said, the sun was already down. I even screenshot the time that the sun went down that day to prove I wasn't crazy. And yeah, that blew me away. And then within a couple weeks, there was some other stuff that happened. I don't remember the exact details of why I got upset. I got scared, essentially. It was all of the intense spiritual warfare, plus my mom found out some of what was going on, and being very religious, she was freaking out on me and trying to have an intervention. And I was just kind of freaking out. And like, I was worried about, is this all really true? Every single divine feminine goes through those thought processes of, am I crazy? Is this really happening? Is this real? Are twin flames real? Are we really going to end up together? Is spiritual warfare real? Am I totally batshit crazy? Like, is this possession really occurring? I didn't have to worry about possession, but I have seen people have to deal with possession now, so fine. I did have to deal with attempts at possession, but anyway, not going to go down that road. That's another tangent. Actually, I did have to deal with possession. What am I talking about? But, oh gosh, okay. I went off on a tangent, so I stopped it and deleted. Okay, anyway, like I said, every divine feminine goes through those periods of like worrying that they're crazy and that the twin flame journey isn't real, or spiritual warfare isn't real, or anything like related to that. So yeah, I was having one of those moments, and I was scared and I was worried about all sorts of things. And I had also received a very significant message about my future path. It was along the lines of telling me that I was meant to be a significant spiritual healer and go through a special ceremony to open up my gifts and just everything that it entailed. But it was more so about the significance of what I was going to go through and experience, like, as my life purpose path. And just between that and the twin flame journey and the spiritual warfare and just everything, like, I just got very upset one day, and I cried myself to sleep in the middle of the day. I took a nap. I cried myself to sleep, sobbing and praying and asking God for guidance, because I was just begging for help and understanding. And I was saying, like, how am I supposed to do all of this? How am I supposed to handle all of this? Like, those types of questions. Just sobbing, praying, begging for answers of how the hell I'm supposed to do this, and if it's really real, and if I can trust it, and just all those things. That was another big part of it. Can I trust all of this? So I woke up 2 hours later to a message in my Facebook Messenger that was a direct answer to that prayer. The message was from a girl who I had not spoken to in many years. Like, we just happened to still be following each other on Facebook, but we weren't even really friends. Back years ago, when I attempted a home-based business, I had tried to recruit her, and we were just still Facebook friends, but we weren't never really that close in the first place. I knew a little bit about her, but had not spoken to her in years. What I had seen was that in more recent times, I had seen her posting. She's basically a seer. She calls herself a seer because she's religious, and I'm not going to go off on this tangent, but she has a problem with psychics, but believes in religious Christian seers. And I would see her posting on Facebook with her testimonies of her experiences helping people, from what Father would tell her to do and tell her what to say to people and all this stuff. And I was paying a little bit of attention to that because I thought it was really interesting, especially doing what I do now. But like I said, I hadn't talked to her in years, and all I knew was that I had seen her posting these stories on Facebook. Well, when I opened up Facebook Messenger, I had a message from her, and she said, "Father put your face in my head this morning, and he asked me to message you. He wants you to know that he has big plans for you and your daughter, and he desires to speak to you directly." And I burst into tears. I was curious if I was going to get emotional now, a little bit, But it does still affect me, because if that is not a direct answered prayer, I don't know what is. I fell asleep crying, overwhelmed with the immensity of everything, and asking God, how am I supposed to do all of this? Am I really supposed to do all of this? Can I believe all of this? And I woke up to this message from this girl that I had not spoken to in years, who had absolutely no idea of anything that I was going through. And she said, Father wants you to know that he has big plans for you and he desires to speak to you directly. So that was probably the biggest basis of me trusting in spirit and this journey, and just, getting thrown in the deep end and going along with it. And I did let go of a lot of resistance and fear at that point, because that direct answer prayer was so impactful on me, and still is. And lo and behold, 3 years later, I did start talking to him directly, to some extent. I do talk to him directly now, but I say it like that because who and what people define as Father and God and all that stuff varies. That's why I said it like that. But 3 years after that is when I started having direct conversations with Jesus, and now I converse with him pretty much daily. Sometimes for clients only, sometimes for myself, sometimes about ascension and the twin flame journeys. And as a lot of you guys know, and some of you guys are learning, a lot of the stuff that I record with my twin flame talks and ascension talks comes directly from these long spirit chat conversations that I have with usually primarily Jesus, but I do talk to a variety of beings now. Excuse me. I primarily talk to Ascended Masters. I used to talk to angels more, but I prefer Ascended Masters now. But yeah, I've had galactic beings come through. I actually had, not too long ago, I had the Divine Father come through. Well, I can tell when they're coming through because when I use my pendulum. I can communicate with them in multiple ways now, because my clairaudience has grown a lot since then. So now I can hear the messages in my head as well. I don't have to use the pendulum and this chart to have the conversations, but I do, because I'm very evidence-based. I do like to use the pendulum and the chart because it is evidence. Because I'm not controlling it, and they're spelling out sentences to me. But I can have those conversations in meditation and clairaudiently as well. When I'm using the pendulum, when a being wants to talk to me, they will shake it. So like if I'm holding it, let me hold it the correct way. Why can I not do this right now? Here we go. If I'm holding it the correct way, they'll start to shake it, and it feels like it's shaking from up here because of the way that it's shaking, and I can tell that it's not like me. And that's how I imagine it in my head. I imagine it like two people like fighting over like, no, I want to talk. No, I want to talk. So I'm like, sometimes it'll get so bad that I'm like, everybody stop. Who wants to talk first? So I was laughing to myself because I was thinking about how it's like hurting children sometimes, but it's a joke. Anyway, so it became clear that somebody else wanted to talk to me, and I asked who it was, and it was Divine Father. Now, I do need to have a longer conversation with him to understand him better, like just who and what he is, because of course Christians believe in Father. Not all spiritual people do. I do want to have a greater understanding of that, but that's another tangent. In any case, Divine Father did come through to talk to me the other day too. So anyway, as you can see, it's very hard to condense 5 hours of story into a short synopsis. I hoped to finish in 3. I think I'm going to start part 4, but it should be pretty quick to wrap up because those were the biggest things I wanted to point out and talk about, that my direct answered prayer and the angel or Jesus in the sky, whoever it was. And I gave you a rundown of the beginning part of my story. So I'll do a wrap up of since then. in the part 4. Okay, so picking up where I left off, I had told you guys about the direct answered prayer and everything that had happened in February 2018. And I did already discuss how I dealt with our spiritual warfare case from the end of 2017 until April 2021. And it was very convoluted and complex. I do already have on my social media, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, I have the story of the first year of 2018 and everything that I went through with that. I have not yet recorded about beyond that, and I will. I'm not sure when yet. It's Spirit guides me when. 2019 was the most intense year. 2020 could rival that, but 2019 there was something every single month, whereas 2020 was 2 huge problems. So fine. But anyway, let's fast forward. Okay. The end of 2020 is when we shifted into the reunion stage. And for us, the reunion stage has meant like we're not fully together. We're together in a way, meaning that like he's not running from the connection anymore, not trying to break the connection anymore. He spent a long time sacrificing himself because he thought that it was what was best for his children. But, you know, as many of us know, that's a complex answer of what's best for children, especially in a toxic environment, because as many of you know, karmics are more often than not toxic people and narcissistic, and you know, to any karmic that's doing black magic like that and trying to have that amount of control over their partner is that's not real love. Although I will say that I did a healing. I was directed by Spirit to do a healing for us, me, him, her, last week, and during the healing, I don't think that I was in her, but I was like feeling her perspective for a period of time. And I could feel how there was a point in time when she did genuinely care for him and she thought that she loved him, even though she didn't, it wasn't like real love. And I could definitely see from his side that it wasn't real love. And then I saw that the reason why she felt that way was because entities, which are demons, had put an implant in her sacral chakra that caused her to feel that false love. It was like a false screen projected into her to confuse her and make her think that, you know, he was her one true love. So she would, you know, do everything that she did. Because understand also that these crazy toxic karmics, like the ones who are doing all of this black magic and all these crazy things to control and trap the divine masculines, like they are not, from the 3D and 4D perspective, they are, I don't know, you hate them for everything that they're doing. But from the higher spiritual perspective, like they're being controlled as well. Like they have demons and negative spirits who are controlling them to make them be this way and to make them attack the divine masculines to keep the twin flames apart. That's actually the 4D perspective. The 3D perspective was the first one. That was the 4D perspective. And now from the 5D perspective, the higher spiritual perspective, it's in their soul contract. They agreed before they were even born to play this role and to go through this. Is part of their learning processes as a soul. They are experiencing what it's like to be dark, and they are playing the role of the karmic in the twin flame path for the twin flames, for everybody's journeys as a whole. It's part of everybody's soul contracts. So when you keep going up and understanding the greater spiritual purposes of everything and why it's happening the way that it is, like it is all masterfully architected, designed by God, our higher selves, etc., etc. And it's not really their fault. Like, from a spiritual level and through the healings that I have done for her, like, I've forgiven her, and I'm trying to help her heal and get on her true soul path. And that was part of the healing that I did last week. And like I said, I did see and feel how the entities had put that implant in her to make her think that, she was truly in love with him, and to be so obsessed to do all of the things that she did to him and to us. So fine. Take that into consideration for your own journeys. So anyway, gosh, I could go on so many tangents. I did want to say, I don't remember if I said this before, but the spiritual warfare, whether it's black magic or entities, greatly impacts how your divine masculine acts and the external influences such as karmics. So you must figure that out and get to the root of it and fix it when that happens. Anyway, let me finish wrapping up my story. So, like I said, he entered the reunion phase at the end of 2020. So he was no longer like completely sacrificing himself and running from me. But he, has had his own process of working on his life and sorting out his situation. And he doesn't like to talk to me about that either, because he doesn't want to get my hopes up. He doesn't want to say anything about timeframes because he doesn't want to break promises, and just all sorts of reasons that I do understand, even though he tries to keep it a secret from me. But I do understand his reasons and all of that. So anyway, point being, we've been in the reunion stage. He and I are in a good place. It feels to me like a long distance relationship. We don't talk constantly because we're both very busy, but I'm in a surrendered state and I don't need that. And I also understand him and how he functions. And that's fine. Like, I know how he feels, and I don't need to have that constant communication. I have also come to realize that twin flames in reunion, I've confirmed this with Spirit as well, twin flames in the reunion stage do experience another separation. 95%, I believe, Spirit told me, experience another separation in the reunion phase because there is still individual growth and healing that needs to occur. How that looks depends on the twins. For us, it looked like both of us being really busy and just not having the time to constantly be in communication. And that allowed us to have the time to work on ourselves. I've seen examples of twins in reunion who had a stormy breakup, we'll say. I could not think of the right word, but had a fight and a breakup or something along those lines. I've also seen amicable breakups, but they still find their way back together. I've seen the examples of the ones who have had the amicable breakups and still found their way back together. And I am working with clients who had the difficult separations and are in the process of working their way back together. And I fully believe that they will, because now I understand that the separations during the reunion phase are also a part of the process for continued working on themselves and their lives and all that, and spiritual awakening and all that stuff. So anyway, like I said, he and I have been in the reunion stage since the end of 2020. Our spiritual warfare case has been closed since April 2021. And really since then, Spirit has been bringing us both through, like I was just talking about, those individual processes of growth and healing that we still needed to complete before union. And I do believe we're close, but I am no longer stressed about the timing of everything. I know and trust that everything is happening exactly when and how it's meant to. And now, I end up focusing a lot more on clients and collective warfare work, and things like that. So I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that I need to discuss, but I don't think there is, and I have less than a minute to wrap up. So that's the quickest summary I could do of my journey, where we've been, where we're at, and also, those big impactful spiritual awakening experiences that I've had. And now here I am working as a reader and a healer and helping twins find their way forward, helping them defeat spiritual warfare and all that stuff. So I hope that my story helps some of you, whether it's what you are experiencing or to help you understand where my channeling comes from. And I guess you can always reach out and ask me questions if you want to know more. I'll talk to you guys later.